tales and mythology, which make their way into my stories even when the settings are quite historical. Some of you will know that as a small child I loved fairy tales. I wrote and I read fairy tales all the time. I read mythology, and I've continued to be very interested in that kind of story, traditional story, right through my life, because I believe that those old traditional stories that were told around the campfire at night before the days of artificial light were stories to help us make our way through life and to learn, become wiser, to gain the wisdom and the strength to deal with the bad things that happen to us, the challenges in life. So I think traditional stories are terribly important, and although I don't actually write fairy tales, I try to incorporate those really important values into my work about learning how to be brave, learning about love, learning that love is not an easy thing, but it's quite hard work throughout one's life, learning how to meet challenges and what to do if you feel weak, how to gather your strength, how to work with other people. So all those values come through in the fairy tale. I also incorporate history in my books. I love reading history as well. In fact, most of my reading that I do for pleasure is non-fiction, historical texts or books about geography or plants or animals, and that makes its way into my work as well. But I think I have an imaginative way of looking at history. I don't write straight historical novels or straight history books. I always incorporate an element of wonder or an element of magic into history, and I suspect it's because I believe that there's an element of wonder and magic in our real lives, and you can't write any story, or I can't write any story without bringing in that supernatural wonder, which is often expressed in the natural landscape of the book, the forest, the lake, the places that the characters journey through. So that's two things, mythology and history. Another element that's terribly important, probably central, is family in my books, and relationships between people, good relationships, bad relationships, stories about brothers and sisters and how they interact and how different they are, and of course the good old romantic love story. There's one of those in all of my books. There are two love stories in Wildwood Dancing, which is the book that we have on display tonight, and someone asked me in an interview yesterday whether I would ever write a story with a love story that has an unhappy ending, and I think I actually have done that twice. Twice I've had, the man in the couple has ended up without the girl at the end. So, but I believe in hope. I believe in happy endings. I don't think a happy ending is happy for everybody. It can't be. There'll always be someone left out. But I like to read stories that have an element of hope at the end, and so I write stories that are that way as well. And I suppose the last element, number 4, is to do with magic and spirituality, and I think that the fact that I belong to a Druid order and my own spiritual path is I don't like to use the word pagan because it's very misunderstood, but that my sense of spirituality is bound up with nature and landscape and sense of place, and that works its way into my books, whether I'm writing about Christian people or people who belong to some older faith or people who have lost their faith. That's an important element. So, moving on from that, have I been speaking too long already? We're all right? Okay. I'm very conscious of the fact that once I start to speak, I talk and talk and talk, and I don't want to do that because I know that people will have questions to ask, and I'd also like to have time to sign books for everybody.